a new Institute for Governance IGR poll of Freetown on 3 burning issues dividing the capital into multiple local councils, electricity supply, and managing funeral procession in a congested city was done by IGR. But of course, we would want to discuss the findings in that report, in that poll done by IGR. I'd want to understand what's the rationale behind that in the first place. We've been joined in our studios this morning here to discuss this. We have the Executive Director, Institute for Governance Reform, in the studio with us, Andrew Lavalley, to discuss this and more. Welcome in the program, Andrew.
Good morning, listeners and viewers.
Yes, Andrew, let's start off. I went through the report. It's interesting. I have so many questions, so many concerns. You look at the IGR poll finding itself that only 32% of Freetonians have heard of the plan to split the city. And among those who are aware, 62 opposed to the idea of us splitting the city. And taking into context the very old boundary that we have, we know Freetown City is from Ogu at Allentown to Levoma Beach, approaching towards Godrich. And of course, we know the hilly areas, most of the hilly areas are part of the western area, urban.
Rural.
Rural. Are we big enough as a city to have a split?
It's not my call. So what we did was to just get the views and voices of Freetonians. Because let's put it this way, for the Institute for Governance Reform, what we do is to generate citizens' evidence, views and voices into decision-making rooms. And so we do that in a systematic way. And this makes our work really different from what journalists do. A journalist will go and maybe interview one person. So we do a scientifically randomized process where every household, for example, in this case, Freetown, is given an equal opportunity for you to be selected, for your voice to be heard. So the process is that scientific. So what I can do is just comment on the results. I don't think my views on whether Freetown should be split or not, it really counts here. I think the poll will actually show what are people's views about that, whether it should be split or not. So that's what we actually did.
Let's go to the poll itself. What was the sample size, and what were the specific questions relating to those areas? What were you looking for? What were you asking or intending to grasp from the poll itself?
So there are 3 big questions that were raised by the poll, and they all bother around the governments of Sierra Leone, this big reform that they talk about. So the reform, I don't know whether redistricting is a reform, but actually it's a decentralization reform. So we ask questions whether people want that or people do not want that, and what is the governance arrangement that they want. The second question was around electricity supply, and we compared citizens' view about electricity supply in October compared to a year ago. And then the last question was around the burial. You know, there has been a number of reforms, if you like, by the government of Sierra Leone to ensure that there is free movement of people in the congested capital. We saw the Waka Fast bus. We've seen some construction, even under the past administration, the construction of the hillside bypass road. But there is always the technical element of traffic, controlling traffic congestions. But there is also the human element. So for those that are transport economics, they will tell you that it doesn't matter how much roads you construct, but if the human element is not addressed, it will be difficult to control traffic. So that's why we picked on burials. And everybody living in Freetown, you know, that at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, as the case may be.
Thursdays and Fridays.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you could even miss your flight. But the question is, that's the way we honor the dead. That's the way we honor, we give them a befitting farewell. So, and it's difficult for the city council and for government of Sierra Leone to just say, I'm going to do this about redistricting. So about redistricting, I'm going to do this about burials, I'm going to do this about electricity. What people feel about electricity supply, the tariff, and questions like that. So this poll is really about what citizens feel and how they feel about these critical issues confronting them.
And when the poll says only 32% have heard of the plan, are we talking about headlines or full knowledge on the plan to divide the city?
Well, this is self-professed knowledge. So we did not question them or interview them or how much do you know or how little do you know. So they just said, the question was, have you heard about it? And do you know about it? And those that said yes were 32%. And the remaining 68% said no.
About 1,072 respondents you mentioned,
yes,
were interviewed. For which criteria were they selected and which areas?
So it's really a randomized selection of respondents. So what we did was to, using successive censuses, and the zoning of Freetown into wards. So there was first a randomized selection of wards, and then second there was a randomized selection of streets, and then third there was a randomized selection of households. So what we normally do in our work, in our research work, is to limit discretion. So the person choosing will not choose people like they like. So even in the household, at the household level, if we happen to be particular household happen to be in the survey sample, the entire household is being randomized. So it's machine-based selection at the household level. So the machine will tell you, the interviewer will ask, how many adults? We normally interview people above 18 years. So how many adults are here? You say James Kamara, Andrew Lavalley, this and that. And then the machine will tell you, interview this person. So you don't select who you interview. And then you move five houses to the next household. And what we normally do is the alternation of men and women. So we have an equal percentage. So it's a 50-50 split. So if you interview a man in this household, the next household you interview a woman. But even at that, the machine will tell you, if you have Yebu Kamara, Dora Dumbuya, they will tell you, interview Dora Dumbuya. You don't select.
But key figure in this that the machine wouldn't pick will be political affiliation. Because in a survey like this, that will not be the concern. But the responses will seem to sway that way. Say, for instance, if most of the people you interviewed are pro-SLPP or pro-APC, it will mean different answer for the poll.
No, randomization.
Was that taken into consideration?
No, randomization takes care of that. So mind you, if you are leaving, say, Orugu Bridge, so you want to go to Levuma, and then at every checkpoint, say I'm going to interview 5 people in every junction. You have actually not determined who you interview. You have just said, I'm going to interview 5 people. So that's your sampling frame. So at the end of the maybe if you take 30 junctions, that's where you're going to interview, you'll get 150 people. So it's a rough way, but I'm just explaining to viewers what randomization is about. So it's normally the way we explain it, it's like cooking a soup. So when you want to cook a soup, if you want to taste the soup, because sampling is actually to taste the soup, you do not ask, you do not need to take the whole bowl of soup. You just need to take a little bit. So, but what makes you confident that this soup, the taste of this soup, is the taste of the entire pot? Is the number of ways you stir, number of times you stir the pot. So you ensure that it's all mixed. So randomization is actually the mixing of people statistically. Is how you ensure that you mix the population and everyone is given a fair chance to be interviewed.
A lot of politicians have challenged your data. I remember a while ago you released the Afrobarometer 2025. They are saying that much of your surveys are perceptive. They're not scientific in nature, just what people feel or think.
Have you eaten this morning?
I haven't, actually.
You haven't. It's not a perception. It's your condition that you have not eaten this morning. But let me tell you what politicians normally do. Politicians normally, there are some that want to reform. There are some that do not want to reform. So when you have, data challenging their behavior, what they do, they come after. In fact, sometimes they go behind the data to attack the person. This person is APC, this person is SLPP. without actually discussing the question. So if you release a perception survey, call it perception if you like, which is to us is actually people's lived reality.
Okay.
So if you publish that, someone that wants to be corrupt, that wants to continue to be corrupt, will definitely challenge it. If you release a survey that says, you know, government is doing badly on education, maybe the Minister of Education will say no, giving all what to put in place. But that's what citizens are saying. So it doesn't matter. And so what we normally do, we employ gold standards in our work. So it doesn't matter whether it's Harvard that did it, or it's MIT, because it's the standard that we maintain, that is peer reviewed, that has been tried and tested. For example, the Afrobarometer work that we do, that's what is taken in 48 other African countries. But you know, that denial is accepted. I mean, Ghana went through that phase where when they published Afrobarometer data, it's been denied, it's been resisted. Now they've passed through that phase. Now it's really about what do we do about it. So Sierra Leone, we're still in that phase where, oh no, this is Lavali. Davali is from Bo. He went to school in Bo. It must be SLPP. It's understandable. To be honest, it's understandable. But the reality is, can you challenge the data? Beyond going behind the data and labeling people, can you challenge the data? Can you challenge the information? And sometimes, you know, to be honest, to be fair to politicians, it's difficult because they have limited resources to work with, and then you have this huge expectation on behalf of citizens, on the part of citizens. So when we come up with information like this about what citizens feel, what they do not feel, sometimes they think we are dispassionate to their circumstances.
You know, it's almost habitual now for government to refute, you know, deny some of these reports. I remember a while ago in Nigeria, the World Bank released their 2025 report, and Tinubu outright denied the report that people were malnourished and below poverty line, you know, in the country. It's quite common these days. But the question I would like to ask is, how true, if you like, honest are the answers of these respondents that are contacted often for these reports? It's about the honesty, generally, integrity, or mixing up to bring up the quality in some of these reports. If you ask 10 people, how honest are their answers? That's the thing.
Yeah, so normally what we do, we try to control for respondent bias.
Okay.
So you do not only control for the interviews bias, the researcher's bias, because for the researcher's bias, you try to ensure that there's randomization, you try to ensure that the researcher doesn't have a discretion as to who to interview.
Okay.
But for the respondent bias is the way the questions are being framed. If you ask, like I asked you, have you eaten today? It's really your views about whether you're eating today. But if I ask you, do you think the food situation in the country is good? It becomes APC SLPP thing. It's my government. But when you ask the question about your lived circumstance, we normally solicit the responses from the person's from the person's lived circumstance. So we try to control for respondent bias in the way the questions are being framed.
Are these open-ended questions?
No, these are closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. On the governance preference, all respondents, 57% want to keep Freetown City Council undivided, 30% support smaller councils under the FCC, and 13% want smaller councils with FCC abolished. I am concerned with that 13%.
Okay, so, well, that's what they said. So, whether you're concerned or not. But let me tell you, let me just share with listeners what that docket of the poll is, because the poll is divided into three. So the first one is on Freetown City Council. So there is this move for redistricting. So there are arguments for redistricting, there are arguments against redistricting. We did not decide to go into those arguments. We do not bring our own calculations into the process. But first, only 32% of citizens have heard. 68% have not heard. And of the 32% that have heard, 62% of them are saying we don't want Freetown to be divided. So it's left with the government to explain to people the rationale, because Freetown, 62% of Freetown are saying we don't want Freetown to be divided.
People are not even aware that they're dividing the city.
Yeah, this for those that are aware.
Of those who are aware.
Of those who are aware. Because we did not bring in those who are not aware, because we want people with informed judgment about what is happening. Then the third one, which you just mentioned, is then how do you want the Freetown to be governed going forward? And we have what we call in research triangulation. So you can actually take this information and you triangulate against another information. So you have 62% that are saying we don't want the cities to be divided. And then we ask another question is, how do you want the city to be, the governance structure of the city? And still you have 57% that are saying we want it to remain like this. So we don't want it to be divided. It's almost the same figures, about 5% difference, very close to the margin of error of the survey. And then you have another 1/3 saying we want it to be one Freetown City Council, maybe governing different boroughs. Like if you go to New York, you can see boroughs. You go to London, you can see boroughs. And then thirdly, there is another group that says outrightly 13%, just divide the city into different. What they mean about that, because what has not happened, we have not got a technical, conversation about how do we transform Freetown. So these are largely, people view from the point of view of the political party they support. But we have challenges about, waste management. Of course, the city council is doing well on waste management. We have challenges on taxation. How many people are actually paying taxation? So the question is really a question of, putting all of this and have a technical conversation about how better can we effectively manage Freetown.
On electricity, EDSA, 76% say supply is better than it was a year ago, but 90% cite high tariff. I think this is what we all can agree on when it comes to the tariff. And 67 cite low and unstable voltage as top issues, and other concerns also include power theft, which is at 36% of the poll, corruption among EDSA staff at 34%. Is this surprising to you?
Not at all. All the results in those polls were not surprising to me. You asked a question about respondent bias. This is really where you see respondent bias. So look at the question. The question is, compared to a year ago, October last year, do you think electricity has improved? You have 76% of people are saying it has improved. It doesn't mean electricity is perfect. The question is whether it has improved. It doesn't mean it is perfect. Then the next question is, what do you think are the challenges? What do you think government should pay attention to improve electricity supply? The most paramount is tariff. The tariff is, 90% of them are saying the tariff is too high. And of course, as journalists, it's good you compare tariff in Sierra Leone to tariff in other West African countries, to Liberia, to that. And then when someone says tariff is high, are they being rational? Are they being realistic? Are they being unreasonable? So it's good we compare. Like we said, we did not bring our own evaluation into this, but it's good for the media to pick stuff like that up to see whether Sierra Leoneans are being unreasonable or really this call for high tariff is actually something in place. And then the voltage fluctuation. Of course, there are a number of households that are complaining that my equipment got fried and stuff like that. So voltage issue is a major concern. But there are things that the bias of respondents actually came in through this question. So when respondents were asked about the challenges, they were not too strong about the problems that they create for EDSA. They were strong about the problems that EDSA is creating for them. Say, for example, electricity theft is very low. If you ask EDSA will say electricity theft is very high.
But someone will argue again that it's because of the tariff that people are stealing lights.
Yes, there is a place for that argument, but I'm just saying the facts. It is the fact that electricity theft and maybe inability for government to pay bills they constitute major problems for electricity supply. But I'm just saying, in terms of respondent bias, we believe that there was some bias in terms of shielding. And of course, you cannot turn up, an enumerator cannot turn up in somebody else's house and then ask the person, do you think there is electricity theft in your household?
And they agree. They
They kind of answer. It's hard for them
will
to
not agree.
Yeah, so that's it. So apart from those concerns, I think it's the entire data I think is valid.
Let's talk about the processions. And the city, 54% still wants them to continue grand send-offs, 33% favor reform, 8% support a full ban. But I think it's a matter of cultural science as well, how we've been living in Sierra Leone. But don't forget, I think there's a procession ordinance, CAP 73, that's still operational, in Freetown. I don't know how this is going to happen really. What particular reform do you think this particular area would need? Is it a total ban?
It's not my place. It's not my place to call it that. I think we want to run a modern state.
Okay.
But the question we need to ask ourselves, what are the instruments we are using? Are we using traditional instruments to run a modern state? So if that's what Freetown wants, in fact, there were other questions we really asked, which we've not published yet, on lanterns and paddles, and stuff like that.
Well, that's a very sober area. Why didn't you include those?
No, definitely off the air, I will let you. But,
All right.
but you have departing, saying farewell to the dead, disrupting the living.
Traffic congestion.
Yeah, traffic congestion. So if we want to continue that, that's fine. IGI is not saying change that.
Okay.
But these are topics that are too difficult for politicians to handle. Imagine a politician just waking up today without this data saying, I want to ban funerals. It's only 8% that are saying, it's only 8% that are saying ban it. But you see it's 54% that are saying, let us keep it as it is. We want it this way. But there has been no public education about what are the merits and demerits. But we have 46% preferring other measures to be adopted. The first measure to be adopted is let us ensure we regulate the process, restrict it to certain streets and certain times. Let's say, for example, the main roads, there is no procession on Kuton Road, for example. But the fringes of Freetown, you can process to the cemetery. In fact, yesterday when we were launching, someone suggested an interesting idea. He said, go to the church or the mosque and take a vehicle to the cemetery and process in the cemetery. But that's not part of our survey. But one of the journalists actually suggested that yesterday. So it means there are many things to be done to ensure that we do efficiency in funeral, in burial arrangement, and efficiency of transportation side by side. Many other cities around the world have done that.
These are serious socio-political issues, It all boils down to tradition as well, as I said earlier. How are we willing to change all this? Because I wanted to ask the spirit and motive behind this research. What's next is the question. You've brought out a whole lot of, gamut of issues. I would say these are societal deficiencies, things that are plaguing us. You touched on, EDSA's very disturbingly low voltage. Appliances can no longer work effectively because the voltage is not even enough to power your microwave or air conditioner. It happens with me at Hill Station, where I say. Other people will say the same thing. Talk about the processions, perception about dividing the capital city into several zones. These are all serious problems. And, the elections are approaching. They are not too far, really. 2028 is just around the corner here. These are the issues that people will be discussing in the standards. For me, I don't see politics in these issues. What happens next? After you've done this, what are you going to do next?
Exactly what we're doing now is what we're doing.
Just to talk on TV stations?
Not only to talk on TV stations. This is meant for the attention of the government of Sierra Leone and the Freetown City Council. So it's meant for them to not only understand the temperature of citizens about these issues, but it's meant to bring citizens into the conversations that they're having in their boardrooms. I mean, so that's what a research of this nature does. And down the road, maybe there's a need to have a repeat of this survey, maybe 6 months down the road.
Okay.
If you want to embark on really redistricting, and if you go on public education, people still want it? If people do not want it, so it's basically saying,
isn't this even an irony? I'm just baffled this morning. You know, how would you propose such a very, mountainous reform without the people knowing or being involved in the process?
So that's the thing.
Look at the percentages you recorded. People who do not even know that we're going to undertake such a huge reform.
Yeah.
It's a very small capital, by the way.
Yes, it's small, so it means the reform ideas are the reform knowledge about what Freetown knows that government want to do to their city. It's really limited. And interesting thing is about, from those who know, 62% are saying we don't want it. So it means even the merits, whether there's one thing wishing to do it, there's another thing people knowing the merits of what you want to do. So it's not really understood. But your point is really valid about what next. So there is just this we can do as a research institution. We provide the data, we provide the information, and like I said, one of the things to do is to benchmark this process over time. So maybe you do this in 8 months, 6 months, a year to see whether is voltage stable now, and then. But it's meant for ETSA now to talk to the engineers that this is what citizens are saying. And so what our part is to gauge we're using the same methodology again, the same 1,072 people. You ask them again in a randomized way, what do you feel about these issues?
It's also a value for money as well. People are paying, the tariffs are high.
Yes.
And you have to give quality if they are paying for it. People wouldn't mind to pay really in other countries if the services are available. Definitely.
So basically, I mean, ours is not to make a judgment call, but ours is to share the data. So if people are saying tariff is high, you're concerned about value for money. It's really, you're paying high tariff, but voltage is bad. You're paying high tariff, but the currency fluctuation is.
His Excellency's attention should be drawn to this thing. That's why I'm asking this. Would you be visiting him, let's say this week or next week, to present these data to him?
I think His Excellency listens to AYV.
Yeah, definitely. He does watch, actually.
So he watches AYV.
Given the poll results from your executive point of view, what engagement model would you recommend for the government, council, or EDSA to adopt in order to address these issues? Because somebody might be sitting now in his office in EDSA or council and say, okay, IGR has come up with this, let's approach them again for them to offer us a solution. We can't handle this alone. What would you recommend them?
I think it's a great question. I think we have not figured that. To follow up on his question, you actually need to frame some conversation around this, to build some constituency around this. But the first thing we do, the data is out, let the public know, because I think we owe it to the respondents we interviewed that this is the result of the survey that we got. But I think the next level is really the point that you suggested. How do we ensure that we frame conversations around this? Because for us at IGR, we do not measure ourselves by the number of research we do or the number of radio appearances or television appearances. We measure ourselves by the degree of uptake. So it's really if uptake is a big measure of us, I think it's good for us to have a conversation with different agencies around uptake. We are in conversation with the Ministry of with the ministries. We are in conversation. We're going to have some conversation as well with Freetown City Council about all of these issues.
Quite a few people have been actually, sending messages on our Facebook page regarding what we've been discussing. Actually, let me just see if we could sift through them quickly. But have you gone to the page?
Before we go over to the comments, again, briefly, I'd like Lavali to help us and listeners to remind us of the methodological caveat, the sample size, the regional margins, the lack of published questionnaires, so that our audience will understand the limits of these headline figures. As you say, it's a system that looks like tasting the soup. If you taste, you will know if salt boku or pepper boku. But at the same time, someone will want to argue. If you go down and stare at the crow, if I don't know better, say senten pantap, the sugar no boku, but they under. Take us through that again.
Well, I think I continue using the word randomization. It's becoming a broken record. I think, but the overkill is necessary. Randomization is the approach that you use to ensure that you limit your discretion. So, for example, the margin of error, which I've mentioned here, the margin of error is plus minus 3%. The sample size is about 1,072. So a lot of people will argue that how can you just talk to 1,072 people in a city with over 1 million or so people, and then you consider that to be a fair sample for that. And this is where randomization is really key, and this is where all of the statistical measures that you ensure that there is fairness in the selection process. That's how it actually came through. So for the results that we have, when we say the margin of error is plus minus 3%, it could either be plus 3%, it could either be minus 3%. So if, for example, when you say 62% of people are only 62% are aware and 62% are against. If that was what the entire sample is saying, unfortunately for that data point, it's just for the 32% of people. So it means the margin of error is really large in that area. But if it was the entire population, let's say 62% of 177% of 1,072 people, if they were the ones, if all of them responded that we have knowledge, then we'll have a situation where that 62% could either be 65 or it could be 59. That's what we mean by the margin of error. It means it could actually go as far as 65% and it could go as low as 59%. That's the bandwidth. So 62% is the result, but the bandwidth could go above that because the survey has got a margin of error.
Right. Continue to stay with us, Lavali. I would have loved to ask about how this poll is going to be used, because I think there are strong PR goals there to score, especially for EDSA with the improved electricity. And government will want to bank on this. Other people will say, well, awareness is also the issue, because so many people do not know that you are even planning on dividing the city, etc. But we'll come to that shortly. Ransford McLean.
Andrew, let's round off. I mean, you talked about perhaps reintroducing such a research in 5-6 months down the line. Is that going to happen?
I will see.
Okay.
Any commitment for that? We'll see. It all depends on the uptake.
Okay.
So I think what we really crave on the indulgence of government and the city council to pay attention to what citizens are saying. And so definitely I like your suggestion about the need for engagement and to ensure uptake of some of this information.
Because eventually it's about cause and effect. After this research is published, what's next? What happens?
Yeah.
What changes, what changes do it, ignite?
Yeah.
Within governance, not only government, even the general public.
Yeah.
We should see the changes. We should feel them actually.
Yeah.
It's not about publishing these reports.
Yes. So, but I think there should be a caveat. There is a limitation of what we can do. As ours is a research institute, and sometimes for a research institution, there is a limit in which you even push your views, your results. And I mean, we don't want someone to say there is
fear of government intimidation.
No, not government intimidation, but there is. If you push your results so much, people will say there is some agenda. Yes. So you're yes. There is a limit. There is a place that we can stop. But we hope the information is had, and we will say thank you to AYV and other media houses for actually even giving a platform for these institutions to know what citizens feel about this.
There's always a mixed feeling when your polls are up. The last time it left Parliament jittery. What would you want these institutions to take home from this? The ministry or government deciding or planning on wanting to divide, and council also being wary how this will work if it's followed through. EDSA, good PR for them for the improvement according to the polls, but also concerns when it comes to theft. That will be also a point they will want to score. It's a whole mixture of a whole lot. And then the procession, the typical Freetonian will tell you, no, this is our culture. We don't want to ban it. They don't even think about it. When I left how we do so, we'll manage and bear the traffic, a whole lot around that. But what would you want everyone who this poll will affect to take out from this poll? So
it means if you do good as a government, people will acknowledge it and they will say thumbs up. And that's the thing about the EDSA. If you say compare to a year ago, in fact, it's really purposeful. I think what will have been different if you say compare electricity to under APC now, you begin to see political calculations. But you say compare under a year ago, so within this regime. So it means there is the citizens, they could be partisan, but they acknowledge efforts. So if they have light, that's why I was saying you just try to ensure that you get in people's lived reality. So if electricity is available, they will tell you electricity is available. If services are available at the decentralized level, they will tell you it's available. They will acknowledge that it's available at decentralized level. So I think yes, this mixed bag of information, it really typifies the way Freetown thinks. And we want to believe, and I want to continue to crave on the indulgence of the city council and government to take this information and then act on them.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew Lavely from the Institute of Governance Reform. We just pray and hope that the required, changes happen and happen soon, But again, we are just 4 days down to the start of season 4 of the Housemates. Clean game. I think even the resources where, Africell and AYV pour into this particular edition, very huge, Huge, yeah. Even the compensatory, prize. Yeah. Oh.
Great opportunities for the contestants, and we wish them all the best.
Indeed, we do. We do. On a couch on our A game, saying our Sunday, when I go for going inside the house, wish you well, and congratulations in advance to whoever get for win.